August 12, 2000. The Kursk, a Russian nuclear submarine carrying 118 men, sank after an internal torpedo explosion. 23 crew members survived the initial blast. They wrote notes. And that's not even the worst one on this list. 4 submarines ranked from oldest to most recent, from *0, *, to *1, no respawn zone. Permadeath difficulty. Let's go. The first one is USS Thresher, April 10, 1963. The Thresher was the lead boat of a new class of American nuclear attack submarines, fastest, deepest diving, quietest of its time. It had just come out of overhaul. The first dive after overhaul is the stress test. Engineers call it the deep dive. Everyone else calls it Tuesday. 129 men were aboard. Sailors, civilian engineers, observers. They went down off the coast of Massachusetts. At around 700 meters, things stopped going well. A pipe joint in the engine room is believed to have failed, spraying seawater onto electrical panels. The reactor scrammed. Without propulsion, the submarine couldn't drive itself back up. The crew tried to blow the ballast tanks. The high-pressure air valves had ice on them. Moisture in the air system froze when the pressure dropped. So now they had a submarine with no engine, no buoyancy, and a crew watching the depth gauge climb. The implosion happened at around 730 meters. That's roughly 73 atmospheres of pressure. For context, that's the entire Atlantic Ocean sitting on a tube the size of a school bus. The hull collapsed in a fraction of a second. None of the 129 survived. No bodies were ever recovered, because at that depth, there weren't really bodies anymore. The lesson the Navy took from the Thresher was the SubSafe program, a complete overhaul of how submarines are built, inspected, and certified. Since 1963, the U.S. Navy has lost exactly 1 SubSafe certified submarine. So, yeah, the program works. The price of the patch note was 129 men. Next, the Kursk, August 12, 2000.
Look at the Oscar II submarine here.
Barents Sea. The Kursk was an Oscar II class Russian nuclear submarine, 154 meters long, the size of 2.5 blue whales. It was participating in a naval exercise. It was carrying 118 men and 24 cruise missiles. It was, on paper, one of the most survivable submarines ever built. Double hull, watertight compartments, the whole loadout. At 11:28 local time, a torpedo in the forward weapons compartment leaked high-test peroxide fuel. The fuel reacted with the metal of the torpedo casing. The torpedo detonated. That explosion triggered the warheads of 5 to 7 other torpedoes 135 seconds later. The second explosion registered on seismographs across northern Europe, 4.2 on the Richter scale. The submarine hit the seafloor at 108 meters. The front half of the Kursk was destroyed. Everyone forward the reactor compartments died in the blast, but 23 men in the rear compartments behind the reactor survived. They sealed themselves into compartment 9. The oxygen would last roughly 8 hours. Russia waited. The submarine was on the bottom for over 6 hours before Russian authorities admitted there was an accident. They waited 5 days before accepting international assistance. Norwegian divers, when they were finally allowed, opened the rear escape hatch in a few hours. Russia had spent those 5 days insisting they had it handled. The lobby is 400 meters underwater, and Russia kept telling everyone they were still loading in. The 23 men in compartment 9 did not last 5 days. They did not last 8 hours. A regenerative oxygen cartridge used to scrub CO2 appears to have come into contact with seawater or oil. It ignited a flash fire. The fire consumed the remaining oxygen. The men died of suffocation in the dark, somewhere in the first 8 hours. Among them was Lieutenant Captain Dmitri Kolesnikov, 27 years old. In compartment 9, in dark, after the fire, he wrote a note. He used a pencil because ink had frozen. He wrote it on lined paper. He listed the names of the men in the compartment with him, and then he wrote a line to his wife. The translation is, "It's dark to write, but I'll try by feel. It seems there are no chances, 10 to 20%. We'll hope someone will read this." The note was found in his jacket pocket 2 months later when the Kursk was finally raised. The paper was dry. He had folded it carefully and sealed it before the water came in. Spoiler alert, nobody read it in time. Russia eventually attributed the disaster to faulty torpedo fuel. The same type of torpedo had been involved in 2 previous incidents that the Soviet Navy never publicly addressed. The bug report had been filed twice. Both times it was closed as won't fix. Number 3, ARA San Juan. November 15, 2017. The ARA San Juan was an Argentine diesel-electric submarine built in Germany in 1983 with 44 crew aboard. It was returning to base after a routine patrol off the coast of Patagonia. The captain reported a battery problem caused by seawater entering through the snorkel. Salt water hitting battery cells creates hydrogen gas. He was ordered to surface and return to port. He acknowledged. Then the submarine went silent. Hydroacoustic stations operated by the International Nuclear Test Ban Organization recorded an anomalous acoustic event 3 hours after the last transmission. The sound was consistent with an implosion. At the time, nobody connected the two. It took international searchers, including the US Navy, Russian, British, and a private American company called Ocean Infinity, 14 months to find the wreck. The San Juan was located at a depth of 907 meters. The hull was crushed. The 44 crew had been dead for over a year, while Argentina was still publicly hoping. The aggro radius of the ocean is whatever the ocean decides it is. Argentina has never released a final official report. The families have been suing the government ever since. The submarine was 34 years old. It had received a midlife refit. The refit, according to internal Navy documents leaked to the press, was incomplete. They sent it out anyway. I'm sure that was fine. Number 4, the Titan. June 18, 2023. The Titan was not a submarine, it was a submersible, a small, untethered pressure vessel designed to carry passengers to extreme depths. It was operated by a private company called OceanGate. It was on its way to the wreck of the RMS Titanic, 3,800 meters below the surface of the North Atlantic. The trip cost $250,000 per passenger. There were 5 people aboard. The CEO of OceanGate, a British billionaire, a French Titanic expert, a Pakistani-British businessman, and the businessman's 19-year-old son. According to family members, the teenager was afraid of going. He went anyway because it was Father's Day weekend. The hull of the Titan was made of carbon fiber and titanium. This was unusual. Submarines designed for that depth are made of steel or titanium alone, both of which compress predictably under pressure. Carbon fiber, layered in resin, does not. It develops microscopic fractures that accumulate with each dive. The OceanGate CEO had been warned about this by his own former employees, by industry experts, by the Marine Technology Society, by a journalist, by a documentary filmmaker. Roughly 50 separate warnings over 5 years. He fired the employees who raised it. He sued the journalist. He called the safety regulations an obstacle to innovation. I've devised the perfect strategy for ignoring every expert in your field, and somehow it has never worked out. The Titan imploded 1 hour and 45 minutes into its descent at approximately 3,300 meters depth. The implosion occurred in about 1/32nd of a second. The human nervous system requires roughly 1/5 of a second to register a stimulus and begin to react. The 5 passengers were destroyed before any of them could perceive that anything had gone wrong. That is, technically, a feature, not a bug. The fastest extraction in the game, just not the one anyone signed up for. Debris was located 4 days after the implosion, after a multinational search that the world watched in real time. By the time the search began, the passengers had been dead for almost 100 hours. So here's the pattern. The Thresher, built before the rules existed. Kursk, built well, used badly, helped slowly. The San Juan, maintained on a budget. The Titan, warned repeatedly and chose not to listen. 196 people across the four, 60 years between the first and the last. The technology improved every decade. The ocean stayed exactly the same. Submarines sink, volcanoes erupt, civilizations forget. But what if the worst thing to ever happen, the thing that ends the largest number of people in the shortest amount of time, hasn't actually happened yet? What if it's still queued up, waiting for someone to press the button?